जी जनाब, क्या हाल है आपके? खैरियत से हैं? अच्छा, मैंने एक रिसेंटली पॉडकास्ट रिकॉर्ड की अपने एक दोस्त के साथ जिसमें हमने बात की है स्पेसिफिकली कैनेडियन इमिग्रेशन के हवाले से, ख़ास तौर पे कि अगर आप एक इंजीनियर हैं, आईटी से रिलेटेड काम कर रहे हैं या किसी भी किस्म का टेक्निकल काम कर रहे हैं, और अगर आप कनाडा में लैंड करते हैं पीआर के ऊपर या वर्क परमिट के ऊपर, तो आपको क्या चैलेंजेस मिलते हैं, यानी कि जॉब किस तरह से आपने हासिल करनी है, क्या क्या आपने स्टेप्स करने हैं जिसकी वजह से आप उस पूल में ऐड हो सकें जिस पूल से रिक्रूटर्स जो हैं वो बंदे उठाते हैं। तो हमने सारे चैनल्स के बारे में बात की है। मैंने थोड़ा सा अपना पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस भी शेयर किया कि किस तरह मेरी जर्नी जो है वो शुरू हुई पाकिस्तान से, फिर यूके, फिर यूके से कनाडा, और किस तरह मैंने अपने आप को नेविगेट किया इन चैलेंजेस से। तो बहुत अच्छी पॉडकास्ट है, 30 मिनट्स की, ज़्यादा लंबी नहीं है। एंड तक देखिएगा, आई एम श्योर कि आपको इससे काफ़ी फ़ायदा मिलेगा। और आपके कुछ अगर फ्रेंड्स जो है कैनेडियन इमिग्रेशन प्रोसेस में इस वक्त गुजर रहे हैं तो उनको भी दिखाइएगा, क्योंकि उनको भी इससे काफ़ी फ़ायदा मिलेगा। सो लेट्स वॉच इट।
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Soft Skills channel. And today we will talk about how do you get a technical job in Canada. And to do that, we will talk to someone who has been working in a technical role in Canada for the last 7 years. Just for your perspective, every year about 100,000 skilled workers move to Canada. And these are the people who have got some experience in some shape or form from their home countries. So it's a pretty big audience, and it's a pretty big population that moves to Canada every single year based on their skill, qualifications, or their degrees, and so on and so forth. So that's why, and I'm sure you are also very interested in this topic. So without further ado, I will introduce Yasin Nizami. So hello, Yasin. How are you?
Thank you very much, Jameel, for this opportunity. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. So Yasin, tell us a little bit about your journey overall. How did you end up in Canada? What was your journey? And tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Um, I mean, I'm from originally from Pakistan. I was born and raised in Karachi, and I'm sure your audience will find out that we both went to the same university for our bachelor degree, and then right after the graduation, I actually left for postgraduate education. So I went to UK first, and I'm sure the audience will ask, okay, why UK? Back then, UK was very flexible in terms of inviting international students. So the visa policy and the opportunities were quite better actually compared to other countries. So I think it was 2003 when I left Pakistan and then went to UK, did my master's in digital communications, and since then I've been working in the tech industry. Worked with different telecom companies in the UK, and I moved different cities as well. Started my journey in London, then moved to the southeast, and then moved to the Northern Ireland. Believe it or not, a lot of people they don't know Northern Ireland is part of UK. So when I say Northern Ireland, they think it's Republic of Ireland, so it's a different country. So Northern Ireland is part of UK, by the way. So if the audience doesn't know that, you should know. So Belfast was the city where I was based out of, and yeah, I stayed for almost 12 years throughout my career journey in the UK, and then it was a career move to Canada. So it was my employer request that they asked me to move to Canada to expand the business. So it was a good opportunity. They sorted out all the visas and all that stuff. So it was basically nothing to lose for me, right? So I initially had no plans to move to Canada because when a lot of our colleagues and friends were applying for Canadian immigration, I didn't do that because I was in the UK. I was very much vested in UK because I was applying for British nationality and all that stuff. So I got everything done. Like got my passport, British passport back then. But then when my employer asked me to move to Canada, I said, okay, there's nothing to lose. Why should I not entertain that offer? So I took that offer. They sorted out all the visa stuff, and that's how I landed in Toronto in 2016. And since 2016, I've been working here in the tech industry in Canada, different roles, different companies as well. And yeah, that's my a quick overview of the journey.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Yasin. So, tell us a little bit about the some of the challenges that newcomers to Canada face, especially if they have got this blue collar experience and they have, let's say, some level of experience back home in terms of technical degrees or anything on the technical side, IT or no IT. So, what are the typical challenges that people face here?
I think the one of the major challenge is definitely the culture, right? There's a culture difference between, let's say, if you're coming from some of the Asian countries, right? Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So there is a big cultural difference. Of course, weather is different. Weather is much, severe here, especially in the winter. So people tend to take more time to adjust in those changes. I think from an education perspective, from a career perspective, things are a little bit not too much different. They're pretty much same, but the culture is different. So the way you interact with people in Asia is completely different than how you interact with people in North America and Europe, right? So that's a big change that people tend to. Um, it takes time to actually adapt all of these things. Plus, there's a language barrier as well. I wouldn't say barrier, but there's a difference of accent in terms of understanding and communicating better in the local English. When I say local English, which means the way people talk locally here in Canada or North America, which is different when it comes to understanding and reading and writing the literal English, right? So there's a little bit of language change that you have to adapt very quickly. But other than that, I think there are not many big challenges. If you have a right visa, like if you have a work permit or a PR, I think you shouldn't have any issues in terms of going into the labor market.
One of the things that I hear quite often from a lot of my other friends as well, that uh, the hardest thing in Canada is to find the first job because they're always looking for Canadian experience.
That's right.
And of course, how will you get Canadian experience when you're brand new to Canada? So tell us a little bit of how to overcome that challenge.
Yeah, I think this is now changing. I've heard some policy changes at the government level that, especially in Ontario, they are making it illegal for companies to asking for Canadian immigration because we still have labor shortages, and if the companies are still going through these bureaucracy where they have to ask for Canadian experience, of course, a lot of immigrants will never be able to find a job, right? So that's changing. But in the past, yes, this was a big problem. And the way, I mean, I didn't experience it because I was asked by my company to move, and then they had the same organization here, so they sorted out everything for me. But for a newcomer, I think it's a big challenge because you have to convince the recruiter first before you get into the interview that why you should be hired or you should be part of the process for that organization who is basically hiring the talent. And the only I think there are a few ways to address that. But one of the best way to address is how you can sell yourself and to overcome that Canadian experience thing. Like you have multiple strengths that you can definitely highlight, and you can bring it at the top to make sure that the recruiter and the interviewer, if you get a chance, they know and they understand that you have a lot of other valid plus points. If they have to subside the lack of Canadian experience, they should be able to do that, because if you're bringing a lot of other stuff on the table, that make a big difference in terms of decision criteria.
Yeah, and I think a very important aspect of that is your ability to network efficiently as well, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I made a video a while back. I'll put a link on here as well for people to go and watch it, which talks about the importance of networking. And a big part of networking is a lot of times we go on LinkedIn just with the intent of finding a job, but a big part of getting that is also giving, right? So I think it's important that your social media presence, especially when you are moving geographies and you're job hunting and all that, should not just be about, hey, can you get me a job? It's also about, like,
Yeah.
contributing to that community, and then automatically over time you will get some stuff back. So maybe can you touch a little bit about on the importance of networking as the newcomer in Canada?
Absolutely. I think, and I can relate to that. One of the example, when I was in my previous role in Canada, and a girl reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I think she was new in Canada. I think she was from China or any Asian country, and she just wanted to have a chat. He said, "Okay, can I have a just coffee with you? We will talk about some, opportunities in Canada. My background and all this stuff." And she just needs some coaching from me. And I was surprised, a stranger can reach out to me and have this kind of conversation on LinkedIn. But then I realized, I think this is a very good approach to get into the network and then get to know people and understand their perspective. Because if you are talking to a 10-year experienced industry veteran, then you can get a lot of insights by just talking to them, over the phone or over a coffee for 10 minutes. And that can also give you some networking opportunity to be in the network, stay in touch. Maybe you can ask them to review their resume or anything like that. So I think that can help. And this is one of the biggest gap in terms of people coming from the tech background, because they tend to be very introvert. They don't really reach out to people. They just want to stay in their cubicle and do their job. In the past it might have worked, but the way we are changing, we are going into a changing world. I think this will require more and more, where you have to be very vocal and outspoken and be out in the crowd. And then you can basically network with the right individuals. They can get you support whenever they need. So I think this is very important, to be honest.
Excellent. And I'm so glad you mentioned the point about introverts, because I've also got a video on my channel about how do you become successful in the workplace as an introvert. So thanks for mentioning
Mhm.
that, Yasin. One related question, or topic I want to just touch on with you is, nowadays, especially for the newer immigrants, the way the Canadian immigration policy is working is that they are encouraging a lot of people to actually move not to Ontario, because Ontario is already full, and the same is the case with British Columbia and Vancouver area. But there are a lot of immigrants who are going to, let's say, the Albertas of the world, the Manitobas of the world. So they are moving more towards the prairies. And then those job markets are not as big as Toronto, Vancouver, let's say.
Yeah.
So does that challenge exist even in for tech roles? And how do we address that? Like if I am a new person, let's say moving from Bangalore to Winnipeg, and then 6 months down the road, I realize that, hey, the job market here is really small. How do I navigate that challenge?
Yeah, I think in the recent, let's say, 2 or 3 years, that has made a huge change in terms of the housing cost. So when you especially move to a country like Canada, and you have limited funds to survive, for the next 6 to 12 months, right? So you would want to have a place where you can optimize your expenses. I think that will be your first priority before you actually worry about your job, right? So I think in the past 2 years, we have seen a huge explosion in terms of the living cost in Toronto, GTA, as well as in Vancouver, which actually pushed people to move to other cities like Winnipeg and Calgary. I think Calgary is not that bad anymore, because if you compare this back into 2014, 15, where there was the oil market crisis, that actually pushed a lot of people out of Calgary, because literally there was nothing else apart from oil and gas. But now things are changing. I've seen a lot of tech companies are opening up their offices in Calgary, so that is attracting a lot of tech talent. And then because the housing prices, the housing cost, living cost is much cheaper, which is basically attracting a lot of new talent in Calgary. Winnipeg, I'm not sure about it. I think it's a very small city, so the economy is much smaller. But I think Calgary is becoming one of the major tech hub after like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. So I think as a newcomer, and I think you should focus on in terms of how you can optimize your savings and cost in terms of keeping your living cost at minimum, and then look for your career in terms of, okay, and basically in tech, the hybrid work or remote work is very prevalent these days. Yes, some companies are pushing employees to be back into the office 3 days a week or 2 days a week, but you can negotiate that, during the interview. Maybe you can negotiate a deal where for the first 3 months or 6 months you will continue working from home, and then move to the city where the job is required. That is possible, right? It's all about how you're going to sell yourself and negotiate the best deal. um, but I think the most important thing is how you can optimize your cost, because if you are If you find a job in Toronto, but your housing cost is way over your earning, then you won't be able to survive, right? So it has to be a balance where you have to maintain your expenses as well as finding a better job for your career.
Excellent. So, you have a very unique experience, Yasin, where you have worked in the UK and also you worked in North America now. So, how do you compare? So, once again, I'm going to ask the question from the context of someone planning to move or considering immigration, let's say. And often, because I mean, I've gone through the same journey. So I remember back in the day when I was working on my immigration process, typically, like some of the key countries that pop up on the map when you think about immigration are Canada, Australia,
Yeah.
UK. Germany was pretty popular at one point in time. I don't know what's the latest status there. US, of course, has become a bit more increasingly difficult because of the immigration process itself.
Mhm.
So, how do you compare, let's say, the tech job market in Europe versus the one in Canada?
So I think by far, European market is much stronger than Canada. Like European market is much bigger because of the European region economic hub, right? So now because of Brexit, there are some restrictions from a visa perspective, but before that, it was just one big European land. And if you have a European passport, you can freely travel and work and live anywhere, right? So that was a major attraction for a lot of people to be part of any European city and be able to move around freely without any visa and work there as well. So that has produced a lot of opportunities for companies as well as the employees as well. Now after Brexit, I'm not sure how changed that because now I think if you are a British national or British passport holder, I don't think you can go anywhere in the European area and freely work there. I think you have to apply for a work permit, and then I think the process is not too difficult, but it is still a process to go through. So I'm not sure how much impact it has got on the opportunities, but for sure it's much better than Canada. Canada has major advantage as it is next to US. So any US company, they may have offices or even remote employees in Canada. Like any tech startup, if it's starting from California, they may have some opportunities to be remotely employed in Canada for somebody, right? So Canada gets that advantage being part of the US neighborhood. That actually produce a lot of opportunities for remote working or hybrid working as well. And sometimes people move from Canada to US because if you're a Canadian citizen, you can easily move to US as long as you have a job offer, right? Using the TN visa on Canadian passport. So it's plus and minus from a scale perspective. Definitely, Europe has a much bigger market, but Canada is next to US. It also attracts a lot of opportunities from US based companies as well.
Excellent. And that's a great segue into what I was going to ask you next, Yasin, which is should people coming to Canada uh, see Canada as a stepping stone towards moving eventually to the US? Because
Yeah.
especially with technical roles, at least this is my own personal experience, is that as you grow, the number of opportunities in Canada become extremely limited, right? Because there are fewer companies, the economy is, let's say, 10 times smaller or even more than the US. And a lot of, when you think about technological innovation, the hotbed for that, whether we like it or not, is the US, not Canada. So even
Mhm.
tech companies operating, to your point earlier, operating in Canada are most of the times based in the US as well, right? So what's your advice to professionals who are probably like 1 year into Canada? They are of course working on their passport and their immigration process, but once they get done with that step, uh, for someone who is highly technical, is it advisable to seriously consider moving further from Canada to the US?
I think it's a personal choice, to be honest. A lot of Indians, I know that they use this strategy where they use Canada as a stepping stone. So they come here, they pass their 3 year period and become Canadian nationals. And once they've done that, then of course they look for opportunities in US, and you can easily move to US on your TN visa, and then you can sort it out the green card process over there, right? So a lot of I know that Indians typically take that approach, but I think it comes down to your personal choice. US has a different culture, different environment. It's more aggressive, from a culture perspective compared to Canada. Canada is more laid back. It's it's more relaxed, to be honest, when it comes to having an aggressive culture in the company, right? So some people like it, some people don't like it, some people are workaholics, so they prefer to be in that culture and hunt for more opportunities. At the same time, US offers much better pay scale, right? The pay scale is much better in the US compared to Canada for the same job. Like if I'm working as a tech professional in Canada, if I move to US, I can easily increase my pay by 25% on average. Then you have some tax advantages as well. Canada is a socialist country. We have a higher bracket of taxes on the income, versus in the US, you have a slightly less amount of tax that you pay on the income. There are other areas as well where we have to pay extra tax, like property taxes are much higher in US. So that's a different topic. When you compare the living cost between US and Canada, it depends upon which state you live. So that situation varies depending upon the state and your income level. But overall, on average, your income level increases and your growth opportunities also increase in US as well, because US is a hotbed, as you mentioned, of the technical innovation. So any new technical organization will have US presence as a major hub, and that gives you the opportunity to move around, change careers, move up in the hiring chain. So that gives you a lot of room to grow. Versus in Canada, there's not a lot of opportunities. You can maybe continue doing one job for 10 years, then you will be looking around to see, okay, where can I find another opportunity somewhere, especially in tech. If you're in telecommunications, you have five major companies who rules the Canadian telecom network, and most of them, they buy each other, like Rogers buying Shaw. That basically squeeze the pool of opportunities that you may find in Canada. So that's one major problem in Canada, is the monopoly of the companies. Uh, so it's again, it depends upon your personal choice. If you like Canada, the culture, the multiculturalism, the food, then maybe you may want to continue living here. But if you are hungry for opportunities, more jobs, more opportunities, better salary, and then you don't really mind the environment in terms of the multiculturalism, maybe you can move to US. So it's all about personal choices.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the questions, kind of specifically about technical jobs, is, when back in the day when you and I were in university, this was probably like 20 years ago, the typical path for technical people was that, okay, get your engineering degree or get your technical degree, maybe get an MBA, because that might help you land a job with a bigger multinational and all of that, right? That's
Mm.
what most people used to do. Now, with things coming like Google certifications, or a lot of these big tech companies offering their own certification programs, and they blatantly advertise that you don't need a degree to find work anymore. Has the importance of the 4-year college degree diminished? And then I'll also ask you the same question about the importance of MBA, because I personally think like the importance of MBA has gone down significantly, but I might be wrong. So I just wanted to get your perspective from a technical lens.
I think it's changing for sure. I wouldn't say it's diminished, but it's changing. And change is not bad. Change is good, right? The change is depending upon the need of the current market. So the need of the current market is different what it used to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when we were graduating, we were looking for jobs in corporate world, like big companies like Siemens and KESC and those companies. The hiring criteria for those companies was basically a graduate minimum, right, for a professional to be working in that company. So that was the requirement of that era in the tech industry. In the last 20 years, there was a huge change in the tech industry where a lot of startups came in and they become a multi-million or multi-billion dollar businesses in the 20 years time. Like Facebook, Google are the good examples, right? So the need of those type of businesses is very different now. So they want specific, unique, skills which can be used to do a specific task. That doesn't require a university degree. It will help you to basically grow your career over the long run, right? Maybe you can start with a startup as a technical support engineer or a developer, which may not need a university degree. But over time, when you grow your career to become a director, manager, that degree will definitely help, because that gives you the overall perspective in terms of understanding the overall engineering world. But every role has a different requirement. A junior role, starting role, where you're just getting started in a startup, it may not need a university degree to begin with, but as you move your career up, then definitely it will help. And again, over the time, things will change. The type of jobs that we are doing right now, they may not exist 10 years after, right? So our kids, who are going to grow up, they might be doing a completely different type of jobs that we are doing right now, and those type of jobs may not even exist today, right? So we have to see, how the tech world will evolve with the AI and all that stuff. Things will change, and of course, that will require a unique type of skills that may need some extra certifications, which may be complementary for the existing university education, but it may not be the sole requirement, for example, for finding those jobs. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm just trying to throw some ideas.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other aspect of that is what has really driven this change. To your point, is that first of all, change is the only constant, which is very clear, right? To your point,
Yeah,
20 years ago, the market was very different, but now with technology, the disruption, a lot of unicorns have come up, and a lot of like big companies have come up, and who knows what's going to be out there in the next 20 years. It's very hard to predict. So one of the key skills one needs to have is, first of all, dealing with ambiguity, because sometimes we are all human beings and we
yeah,
like things our way. We don't want change, or we don't want a lot of disruption, right? But I think as a professional, whether you are in the technical field or not, it's very important to be comfortable with an ambiguous situation. So a lot of time, like right now, there's a huge scare going on in media about how AI is like the generative AI is so powerful, and
mhm,
chat GPT is just probably the tip of the iceberg. But it can replace jobs, it can replace people. But I think it's not, and this was also mentioned by another guest I had on my podcast recently, that AI is not going to replace the humans, but it's just going to replace those humans who are not upskilling themselves. But people who are able to learn those skills, which are like AI powered or AI enabled, they will, the sky is the limit for them. But that's just one example. There might be another new technology coming down the road
yeah,
in 5 years from now. Because the other big thing which is happening is that uh, the major technological shifts that used to happen, let's say once every 50 years, maybe 100 years ago, now those kind of changes are coming every 5 years, every 3 years. There's one big innovation that changes the game, and that's happening much more frequently. So the key here is to be able to deal with that kind of uncertainty, but at the same time also constantly, like you need to be in a learning mode. So how do I keep upskilling myself? And I think
yeah,
that's probably more important for technical jobs than non-technical jobs, right? For example, like I
exactly.
know someone in my family, uh, the person is a director of technology in one of the leading companies, but he is constantly doing these courses, right? Because he is not like sitting on his couch that, hey, I've become a director, I've conquered the world. No, because he knows that if he doesn't keep up with the evolving technology, then
Yeah,
his job might be obsolete over the next couple of years.
and I think you hit the nail on the head. And basically you talked about the soft skills. I think you didn't mention one of the major skills that will be required over the time is the soft skills, right? For engineers, for technical resources, it's very important to understand how do you deal with people, right? That is going to be one of the most desirable skill in the tech role, as well as you work with tools like AI tools. Your interaction with human will be very narrow, but it will require extra soft skills to navigate through the limited amount of resources. And one of the key skill I should mention is critical thinking, right? So you have to be very good in terms of using the tools, but you also have to be very analytical in your approach. That will be, I think, very much required going forward, as we uh, because the humans will do some tasks that the machines cannot do. Like machines can do mundane tasks very well. Like if it's a repetitive task, AI can very easily replace that, right? If you are in a career where you're just doing repetitive tasks every day, you should be afraid of losing your job right now. But look for the things that the machines cannot do, like critical thinking, decision making criterias, analytics, how you can make decisions based upon the data that is being driven by the analytics, and then that requires human intellect to make those decisions in order to move forward on your in your process or in your job. So I think those skills will be much required in the tech role as well, because as you rely on the machines going forward, you need to use your human intellect to perform some of the tasks the machines cannot do. So I think the tech world will also evolve with the embracement of the AI, and then this will require more soft skills to be more relevant in the business going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you so much, Yasin, for mentioning critical thinking, because like my channel, like if I've talked about 10 skills, probably the one skill that I've talked the most about, I have a full series of videos on, is about critical thinking, because it's so important to your point.
Yeah.
Because most companies hire you not to open a switch or do a very specific task. They basically hire you to solve problems, right? And
Mhm.
problems could, the nature of the problems will change every single day, because your competition might be doing something more disruptive, or you might be doing something which is game changing. So the nature of problems, the complexity of problems keeps evolving all the time. But what doesn't change is the fundamental basics of that problem solving process, or that critical thinking process. So if you master that, then you are able to conquer any situation. That's one. The other point on soft skills that I would want you to elaborate is that as you grow in your career, even if it's technical, you mentioned managing people, right? So people management and leadership skills become so important. And I always refer to a chart, which I'm also going to put here in this podcast, is as you grow your career and as you get more senior, the importance of technical skills over time kind of diminishes, and the importance of leadership
Yeah.
skills goes up. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, as I mentioned, before, that technical role will also evolve over time with the emergence of AI, right? So as AI will replace all the repetitive tasks that we do in our job, we may need to start looking for the stuff that the machines cannot do, right? And of course, if you look back 30 years ago, when the computers were coming into the workforce, our parents were very scared of losing their jobs, right? Because they were handwriting all those entries, data entries in a file, and then they have to pass that folder on to other person, and that person will travel maybe like 50 kilometers to transport that document over to another person. That job is gone, like using the computers and internet. So the same stuff will happen with AI. There's a lot of repetitive tasks that we do that can be easily replaced by the AI. But then AI will create a lot of new jobs which we don't find right now. We don't know what those jobs will be, right? 30 years ago, when the computers were going into the workforce, we didn't realize how quickly and effectively computer can do the documents management, transportation of the document over the internet. We didn't even visualize that 30 years ago, right? Now it's basically a common principle. But same with the AI. Over time, we don't know how AI will create new jobs, which humans will do in the future. We don't know yet. Over time, we will realize how new jobs can be created with the emergence of AI, and human needs to be in the learning mode, in the adaptation mode, to understand, okay, what other things that we can do to complement AI, and then be able to perform our job much better by leveraging AI tools that we have at our disposal. So I think that's what I'm looking for in terms of, okay, how the future will unfold with the emergence of AI. Definitely there will be new type of jobs that will be created, which we will have to be looking for, and then improve our skills to be able to do that.
Excellent. Great. So Yasin, as we come towards the end of this podcast, for anyone who is aspiring to be in Canada, or someone who has just landed here, looking for a technical job or has just started one, what are the three pieces of advice you would like to give them?
Um, as I mentioned, soft skills is going to be a different, a more important skills in your career, right? So if you are very much technical, you have spent a lot of time sitting in your cubicle, working on your computer. It's time to learn some soft skills, be able to speak, properly and effectively, be an active speaker, be able to outspoken, go in the crowd, do networking, know people who are very good in your career, network, and then get coaching. Right, coaching is very good. Reach out to the people who are very expert in your industry, maybe ask for a coffee or a lunch or just a 10 minutes phone call and talk to them, right? Understand their perspective, and that will give you some opportunity to network and then be connected with the big network of professionals, which may help you to find a job or internship or anything, right? So that's definitely one piece of advice that I will give to a newcomer who has nothing in their plate right now apart from applying for jobs. Reach out to the expert people, make connections, get guidance, take coaching, and then act accordingly, right? So there will be definitely a lot of jobs in Canada. You just have to be at the right place at the right time.
Excellent. And I think one thing I just want to touch on is that whenever someone does networking, people expect that the first email I'm going to send or the first message I'm going to shoot on LinkedIn, somebody's going to respond. That's not going to happen. So as you do it, a big piece of kind of advice there is keep in mind that your success rate will be the typical success rate that you have in any marketing campaign, right? Which is 10% or less. So
Yeah,
if you send out 100 messages and even if 10 people respond, you are doing great. You're not doing good, you're doing great, right?
yeah.
So I think people
Even
need
10% is much
to.
higher. I was expecting 3% maybe.
Yeah, yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So I think what you need to go into this kind of cold calling, networking with this mindset. Otherwise, you'll get frustrated very soon and you'll give up, and then it will start a vicious cycle, which is going to affect you psychologically. So that's very important.
yeah.
Excellent.
The other advice I would also give is, don't just get hang up on your current career. Like if you are doing, let's say, an operations job, operations engineer or tech support, don't just get stuck in that particular job. Look around, change, broaden your horizon, and look for other opportunities that may be relevant to your skill set, right? For example, if you have spent 10 years in doing tech support, doesn't mean that you have to continue doing tech support in Canada as well. You may be looking for another job, which uh, may not fit 100% on your criteria, but it will match some of the skills that you already have. So broaden your horizon. Look for other jobs as well that you haven't done before. That way, that also may help you to upskill your skill set, and then be able to look around which you haven't seen before, right? So that's another thing that people should also look into it. The third skill that I can also mention is be relevant in terms of certifications. So in tech industry, certifications matters a lot, especially the latest certification. Every company who was startup 20 years ago, now it's a giant corporation. They may have their own set of certifications which will be required to be able to work in that company. Like Google publishes their certification very openly. So if you want to work on Google products, you have to have some Google certification on your resume. If you are working on Amazon products like AWS, you have to have AWS certification. If you are working in a Microsoft environment, you need to have Microsoft certification. So it depends, where you want to go, but you must have some relevant latest certifications on your resume, because this will help you to be picked up by the recruiters. Because when recruiters run their query in the database, they have millions of resumes there, but they will the algorithm will pick up the latest certifications on the resume. So it will improve your chance to be picked up by the recruiter in the pool, and it will help you to land a position in the interview. It doesn't give you a guaranteed slot, but it will improve your chances to be picked up by the recruiter and being interviewed by the companies as well.
Excellent. Well, Yasin, thanks a lot once again for joining us today. I think what you have shared with us are great, like nuggets of valuable information for anyone who is new to Canada or who is planning to come to Canada. So I really, once again, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today and coming on the Soft Skills channel. So good luck with whatever you are doing, and then let's connect soon as well.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and good luck in your journey as well, Jamil. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yasin.
Okay, that's a wrap. So if you stayed until the end, I'm sure you must have learned a lot of things from this video. And if you like this content, consider subscribe and click on my other videos as well, because I'm putting a lot of content about the technology, the finance, the economy, and investing strategies as well that you may need to build your wealth and thrive in the future. So until then, I'll see you next time.